The boating market has been waiting for a real signal that the next cycle is starting, and Sea-Ray just sent it. The 2026 lineup is not being positioned like a normal model year. It is being treated like a reset in what buyers should expect, what dealers should stock, and what competitors have to answer. When a brand this established changes its approach across multiple segments at once, the impact does not stay inside the showroom. It spreads into pricing, financing, used values, and even what people consider enough boat for their money. The interesting part is not what gets announced on launch day. It is what starts quietly shifting in dealer backrooms, order sheets, and trade values over the next few weeks. A reset nobody saw coming. Most manufacturers wait for demand to pull them forward. They watch listing data, dealer feedback, and how quickly last season's inventory clears. This time, the movement feels earlier than the market asked for, and that is what makes it worth paying attention to. The last few seasons trained buyers to expect two extremes, either scarcity with firm pricing or heavy inventory with sudden discounting. That kind of whiplash changes what people trust. It also changes how brands plan a lineup. A company can either chase the next spike or try to stabilize the category by shaping what normal looks like again. Sea-Ray appears to be choosing the second path. The 2026 push reads less like a single hero product and more like a coordinated shift in layout, equipment strategy, and platform direction. In plain terms, it suggests the brand is planning around the next 5 years, not the next 5 months. That matters because long planning cycles usually show up as structural changes, not paint and marketing. What makes this complicated is that buyers do not purchase strategy. They purchase a boat, a payment, and a promise that resale will not punish them. When a lineup moves, the first stress test is never on the water. It is in the dealership's ordering behavior and how cautiously they commit before the first unit ever arrives. And the earliest patterns are already more revealing than most press releases. Dealer behavior tells the real story. The initial response from retailers tends to show whether something is being treated like a safe bet or a calculated risk. Not because dealers hate new products, but because dealers finance inventory, store it, insure it, service it, and then hope the season cooperates. What changes with a broad new lineup is that the decision stops being, "Do we want one?" and becomes, "How many can we carry without getting trapped?" For a premium brand, the trap is not lack of interest. The trap is time. A boat that sits for weeks costs money quietly through interest, space, and opportunity loss. Some stores lean into early units to capture the first wave. Others hold back and wait until pricing, freight timelines, and customer reaction become clearer. When you start hearing that orders are being staggered rather than stacked, it usually means the showroom is excited, but the balance sheet is nervous. Another subtle signal is the type of questions buyers ask before leaving a deposit. When customers start asking about trade value, availability of parts, warranty turnaround, and insurance cost early in the conversation, it is not because they suddenly became pessimists. It is because price expectations have tightened, and nobody wants to be the first one to find out what the new normal really costs. That retail caution is not random. It is connected to a financial reality that sits behind every all-new model year. A wallet-first reality check. The easiest way to misunderstand a lineup shift is to treat it like a list of features. The harder, more useful way is to treat it like a cost structure. Because once the cost structure changes, the manufacturer's suggested retail price becomes a consequence, not a choice. Even before you factor in engines, the baseline cost of building modern boats has moved upward. Skilled labor, compliant materials, electronic supply, and quality control all add pressure. That pressure does not always show up as a dramatic single jump. Sometimes it shows up as the quiet disappearance of entry trims, the bundling of options into fixed packages, and the narrowing of cheap choices until the buyer is effectively stepping into premium, whether they planned to or not. Sea-Ray's 2026 direction suggests exactly that kind of bundling mindset. When a brand tightens the lineup around higher feature density, it is usually trying to simplify production while protecting margin. That protects the manufacturer, but it changes the buyer's experience because it moves the baseline up. The danger for early buyers is not just paying more, it is paying more, while the market is still figuring out how to value those changes on resale. That is where the first months matter, because the first owners often teach the used market what something is worth. And the next reason pricing gets complicated is that some of the most expensive changes are not visible until you understand what sits under the deck. Hull redesigns that change the cost structure. Most people judge a boat by what they can touch: seating, storage, upholstery, and the dashboard. The real spending starts earlier, in the parts you do not see, where a minor redesign can turn into a manufacturing commitment. A hull is not just fiberglass. It is tooling, reinforcement schedules, curing time, quality checks, and the ability to reproduce the same shape without variations that create warranty headaches. When a brand updates running surfaces, steps, strakes, or overall geometry, the cost is not only material, it is time inside the mold and the precision needed to keep every unit consistent. Even modest changes in length or beam can quietly multiply costs. The footprint affects shipping, storage, and how. Dealership stage inventory. It affects how a customer trailers it, where they can keep it, and how many marinas can fit it. Those constraints do not just influence ownership. They influence the buyer pool, and buyer pool influences resale. This is where premium lineups either become safer or riskier. If the platform shifts improve ride, stability, and efficiency, the market rewards it. If the platform shifts mainly add size and complexity, the market sometimes punishes it because practicality drops faster than bragging rights rise. The reason this matters for 2026 is that Sea Ray's direction hints at improvements that come with weight and equipment, and weight always pulls another part of the boat into the pricing equation. If this breakdown is helping you see the bigger picture, hit like and subscribe so you do not miss the next parts as the real market signals start showing up. The most important details rarely come from the launch headlines. They show up later in dealer behavior, pricing shifts, and what happens when the first used units hit the listings. And I want to hear your take as well, because this lineup is already dividing opinion. Would you rather buy early and lock in the newest platform, or wait and let the market reveal the real numbers first? Drop your answer in the comments. The cockpit arms race. The modern helm has become a competition inside the competition. Screens, software, integrations, and sensors are now part of what buyers believe they are paying for, even when they did not come to the marina thinking about electronics. The issue is that electronics do not age like fiberglass. Upholstery wears, but it can be redone. Engines have hours, but they can be serviced. Software and integrated displays create a different kind of aging. Compatibility, updates, and the slow creep of older tech in a market that treats dashboards like phones. Sea Ray's newer layouts have been trending toward cleaner, more centralized helm designs, and the 2026 approach looks like it continues that. The advantage is obvious: easier operation, better information, and the premium feel buyers expect in this price tier. The hidden cost shows up later when a buyer asks what it costs to replace a display, what happens if a module fails, or whether the next owner sees the dashboard as a selling point or a future bill. This also changes service behavior. A boat with a simpler helm can be fixed by more shops. A boat with integrated systems narrows the list of technicians who can diagnose it quickly. That can be fine in a strong dealer network, but it becomes a concern in regions where service capacity lags behind sales volume. And once the helm becomes a selling point, the engine choice becomes more than horsepower. It becomes a financial decision that shapes the entire ownership curve. Powertrain decisions with long-term consequences. Most buyers talk about power like it is a single question: how fast? How smooth, how loud, how efficient. Dealers talk about power like it is a long list: availability, service intervals, warranty patterns, rigging complexity, and how the boat behaves when loaded. A 2026 lineup refresh typically comes with a strategy around propulsion offerings, not just individual engines. That strategy can include which packages become standard, which upgrades become bundled, and which configurations are quietly pushed to the edge of the order sheet. What complicates this is that modern propulsion is connected to regulatory compliance, diagnostic systems, and increasingly precise calibration. Any change that improves performance or emissions compliance can carry additional certification and engineering cost. Those costs end up embedded in the price, whether the buyer cares about the engineering story or not. There is also the practical side: heavier, more feature-rich boats often need more engine to feel right. Once that happens, the entry configuration stops feeling like a bargain and starts feeling like the version you are supposed to skip. That is how a lineup pushes buyers upward without saying it out loud. The real market question is how those engine choices impact resale. Boats that buyers perceive as underpowered tend to sell slower. Boats that buyers perceive as overcomplicated can also sell slower. The sweet spot is narrow, and that is where the next layer becomes uncomfortable for first-time owners. Why simpler boats are quietly disappearing. The boating world loves the idea of simplicity, but the sales floor often tells a different story. People say they want basic. Then they sit in a boat with upgraded seating, integrated audio, modern lighting, better storage, and a cleaner helm, and suddenly basic feels like compromise. That psychological shift changes product planning. When enough customers consistently choose higher trims, the manufacturer starts building around those trims. The simpler versions either shrink in availability or disappear altogether, not as a dramatic announcement, but as a quiet narrowing of choice. If Sea Ray's 2026 lineup continues moving toward more standardized premium equipment, it likely means fewer true entry points. That does not only affect new buyers, it affects used buyers later, because used pricing tends to anchor to new pricing. When new boats rise, used boats rise too, at least until demand breaks. The risk is that the market becomes top-heavy. When many boats sit at the same premium tier, buyers get picky. They compare brands more aggressively. They demand more justification. And that is when depreciation can become sharper than owners expect. Not because the boat is bad, but because the pool of people who can comfortably afford the category shrinks. Once affordability tightens, ownership costs start mattering as much as purchase price, and those costs often hide in places most walk through without thinking. Storage, transport, and the invisible costs. The moment you move from a boat to a bigger boat, the cost curve stops being linear. Marina slips charge by length and sometimes by location. Storage yards charge by footprint. Trailers have limits. Tow vehicles have limits. Even the number of ramps that feel comfortable can change, depending on beam, weight, and wind. A lineup that trends larger, heavier, and more equipped can bring more comfort on the water, but it can also narrow the list of places that make ownership easy. That is not a romantic part of boating, but it is a decisive part of whether people keep a boat long-term. Insurance also tends to rise with value and complexity. A boat with more integrated systems, more expensive upholstery, and more high-end components is more expensive to repair. Insurers know that. Owners find out when premiums arrive. These pressures feed directly into resale behavior. Buyers shopping used often want the dream without the burden. When they realize the burden is baked into the size and configuration, they negotiate harder or walk away. That can turn a premium boat into a slow-moving listing, which encourages price cuts and resets what owners thought their boat was worth. The reason this matters for 2026 is that Sea Ray's direction appears to push toward higher baseline ownership complexity. And the last time the industry pushed like this, the market left clues that many people ignored. Lessons from past premium shifts. Boating history has a pattern. When a brand upgrades aggressively, early buyers celebrate. And then, the market teaches everyone what the upgrade is worth in real dollars. Sometimes the lesson is positive. Sometimes it is painful. In prior cycles, premium boats often held value well when two conditions were true. First, the changes delivered clear functional benefit. Better ride, better layout, better usability. Second, the changes did not dramatically raise operating costs. When those conditions held, resale stayed firm because the next owner saw the value clearly. When those conditions did not hold, depreciation could accelerate. Tech-heavy packages that felt cutting-edge at launch became ordinary quickly. Larger footprints reduced the buyer pool. High initial pricing created bigger absolute losses even when percentage losses looked normal. The most important lesson is that the market does not reward a boat for being expensive. It rewards a boat for being desirable to the second owner. That second owner is often less emotional, more budget-conscious, and more likely to cross-shop other brands. Sea Ray is experienced enough to know this, which suggests the 2026 lineup is designed to defend desirability, not just impress at the dock. But defense is never perfect, and the biggest pressure is not from competitors. It is from financing, sitting quietly on dealer lots, shaping discount behavior long before owners realize what is happening. Floor plan. Pressure is back. Dealerships rarely talk openly about how inventory is funded, but the consequences show up on price tags. Floor plan financing means interest. Interest means time becomes money. And time becomes especially expensive when the boat is large, premium, and slow to move. In strong demand years, floor plan costs hide because inventory turns quickly. In softer years, the same inventory becomes a financial weight. Dealers may begin by holding firm, confident that the brand will pull buyers in. Then the calendar advances, storage season approaches, and the math changes. The 2026 lineup will land inside a market that is far more sensitive to interest rates than it was during the surge years. That sensitivity shapes dealer behavior. It encourages tighter ordering, staged arrivals, and faster willingness to negotiate once carrying costs build. This is also where a new lineup can create an unexpected effect. If dealers already have late 2025 inventory they want to clear, they may hesitate to stack new models on top of it. That can produce a weird split market where some stores discount aggressively to reset, while others keep prices firm because they only have a few units and want to protect margin. That split does not last forever. It resolves when used units begin appearing, because the used market sets the floor that new pricing can only ignore for so long. The used market reaction. The used market does not care about launch hype. It cares about what people actually paid, what they can finance, and what alternatives exist at similar monthly costs. That is why used listings often become the first honest scoreboard for a new direction. With modern premium boats, used pricing can behave in two very different ways. If the lineup change is clearly valuable and supply stays tight, used prices can hold surprisingly well. If supply grows and buyers feel stretched, used prices can soften quickly because the next owner has leverage. The special challenge with electronics-heavy boats is that a 1-year-old boat can feel almost new, but a 3-year-old boat can feel like it belongs to a different generation of dashboards and integrations. That perception can affect pricing even when the hull and engine are perfectly solid. Another trigger is trade in behavior. When owners trade early, dealers become conservative on trade offers because they know resale may take longer. Conservative trade offers discourage some trades, but they also push some owners to sell privately, which increases listings and puts more downward pressure on prices. The 2026 lineup will be judged quickly by how those early used units are valued. That judgment tends to arrive faster than many buyers expect. And once it arrives, it changes what a good deal looks like for new units sitting nearby. The timing window that most buyers miss. People love the idea of buying at the right time, but most still buy when emotion peaks. That is normal. The problem is that boating is seasonal, and seasonality makes pricing behave predictably even when the products feel unpredictable. Early in a model year, the dealer has scarcity as leverage. Later, the dealer has inventory as pressure. The shift between those two forces can be subtle. A few more deliveries arrive, a few slow weekends hit, the interest clock keeps ticking, and suddenly the conversation changes from "this is the price" to "what would it take?" The best pricing windows often appear when excitement is still present, but urgency has moved to the seller. That moment can be brief. It depends on weather, local demand, and how many units a store is carrying. It also depends on whether the lineup change is truly pulling new buyers into the brand or mostly reshuffling existing buyers into different trims. For 2026, the smartest buyers will not just watch advertised discounts. They will watch how quickly boats are moved around lots, how often listings update, and how frequently dealers advertise bundled incentives rather than straight price cuts. Those are the early signs of flexibility. And once flexibility appears, competitors begin reacting in ways that reveal how threatened they feel. Competitor shockwaves. The marine industry responds quietly at first. Brands rarely admit they are reacting to someone else. They simply release a new package, extend a promotion, add standard equipment, or adjust their pricing ladder so comparisons look different. Sea Ray's influence means that if the 2026 lineup lands well, other premium brands will be forced into an uncomfortable choice. Either match feature density or defend their value in another way. Matching features raises their cost. Defending value often means incentives, which can weaken resale perceptions if done too aggressively. There is also a second layer. Mid-tier brands that depend on being close enough to premium at a lower price may get squeezed. If C-Ray pushes upmarket while also tightening how much value is bundled into base packages, it can widen the gap and force those brands to decide whether they climb with it or stay below and risk looking outdated. Even engine and electronics partners feel the ripple. When a major builder standardizes more technology or changes packaging, suppliers adjust production priorities. That can influence availability, service parts, and how quickly updates spread across the industry. What looks like a single lineup refresh can become a multi-brand shift in expectations. And when expectations shift, dealer risk changes too, because now dealers are gambling not only on one brand, but on the entire category's pricing direction. Dealer risk versus buyer leverage. A premium lineup makes dealers money when it moves fast. It becomes a burden when it moves slowly. The tricky part is that early on, nobody knows which version of the season they are walking into. Large, expensive boats concentrate risk. They cost more to finance, they take more space, and they require the right buyer. If the right buyer hesitates, the dealer's leverage weakens quickly. That is why dealers often love the idea of premium inventory, but fear carrying too much of it. This is also why buyer leverage is not only about negotiating skill, it is about understanding what a dealer is trying to protect. Early in the season, they protect margin. Later, they protect space. Those are different motivations, and they produce different deal structures. Sometimes the concession is price. Sometimes it is upgraded equipment. Sometimes it is service, storage, or warranty add-ons. The buyer who understands the dealer's pressure points can negotiate more intelligently without needing the dealer to admit what is happening behind the scenes. C-Ray's 2026 lineup will amplify these dynamics because higher baseline pricing makes every unit more sensitive to time. And once the market becomes time-sensitive, the entire meaning of ownership begins to shift. The boat ownership rewrite. Boating used to reward people who were willing to accept some inconvenience. You learned quirks, you tolerated limitations, and you traded comfort for simplicity. The new premium direction across the industry is changing that bargain. If C-Ray's 2026 strategy continues trending toward integrated systems, premium layouts, and bundled comfort, it is not just selling boats. It is selling a different definition of boating. Easier operation, more automation, more built-in entertainment, and less willingness to tolerate anything that feels unfinished. That can bring more people into the lifestyle, especially families and buyers coming from luxury vehicles who expect polished experiences. But it can also push traditional buyers away if they feel the category is becoming too expensive, too complex, or too reliant on service networks. The long-term result could be a market split. One side buys the premium integrated experience and treats the boat like a floating extension of modern life. The other side chases simpler, older, proven platforms because they want boating to feel mechanical, fixable, and less financially exposed. C-Ray sits in a powerful position within that split. If 2026 lands well, it will validate the premium integrated direction. If it lands awkwardly, it will remind the industry that buyers still punish complexity when it does not translate into lasting value. And that leads to the only warning that really matters in a year like this. The final financial warning. The biggest mistake buyers make during a major lineup shift is assuming the first version of the market is the real version. Early on, everything looks firm because supply is limited and attention is high. That is when people confuse excitement for stability. The truth is that stability is proven later, when inventory builds, when the weather stops cooperating, when financing costs accumulate, and when the first used units begin shaping price expectations. Those forces are stronger than any marketing message. C-Ray's 2026 lineup may end up being a genuine step change in how premium boating is packaged and experienced. It may also reveal that the industry has moved faster than the average buyer's wallet. Both outcomes can be true in different regions at the same time, which is why watching dealer behavior matters more than watching headlines. If you are shopping this lineup, the smartest move is not rushing. It is watching what happens once inventory builds and the first deals start quietly appearing. That is when the math gets honest. Now tell me this, would you buy the 2026 models early for the newest platform, or wait for pricing to soften after the first wave? Drop your answer in the comments. And hit like and subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdowns, because the real story will be told by dealer moves, used listings, and the numbers that follow.